So we were just talking about seeing kookaburras in zoos, and we're going to talk about Guam Kingfishers next, which we were excited to talk about these. Amanda and I actually went to the Brookfield Zoo just a few months ago with our Audubon group, and I know that they have Guam Kingfishers there, and so we sat through like a whole thing. And but Jenna, we're really excited to talk to you about them as well, just to kind of learn more about them. So they, do you want to give an overview of them?
I'd love to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Guam Kingfisher, it is one of 28 species in the genus that I studied for my dissertation. In the genus Totiramphus. That name, Totiramphus, comes from its bill being flattened like a toady, actually, as we were just talking about. Small green bird that is endemic to the Caribbean. There's 5 species. So it is not plunge diving. All of them, if you think about their bill, it's not like, it is pretty like long and narrow, but kind of gray on the top, kind of horn on the bottom, horn colored. And they are all terrestrial predators. And so again, toady is toady-like. Ramphus means bill. And so Guam Kingfisher, also known as the sheheck, which is the local name of Guam Kingfisher. And they have, it's their specific epithet is cinnamominous. So Totiramphus cinnamominous. Cinnamominous is like cinnamon because the males are a brilliant rufous. So when we think about kingfisher color evolution, a lot of them, especially in this genus, are green-backed or blue-backed, and a lot of them are white. A lot of them are not super sexually dichromatic, meaning differences between the males and females, but Guam Kingfisher is pretty obviously sexually dichromatic. So the males have a brilliant rufous, like deep cinnamon orange color on their head, on their chest, their belly. Their backs are green, similar to females have green backs. Females differ from the males because they are rufous on their breast and then on their heads, but they have white bellies. So they're sexually dichromatic. You can tell male versus female just by looking at them. And they're really cool because a lot of Totiramphus kingfishers have a eye stripe, which I like. This looks like a little Zorro mask. And so rufous head, Zorro mask, brilliant color. So it's a woodland kingfisher in the same subfamily as the sacred kingfisher that we keep talking about being eaten by kookaburra. And so it's endemic to Guam. For a long time, it was considered part of a population that occurred on 3 islands. One on Guam, Totiramphus cinnamominus. One on Palau, which is like 1,000 miles away, and that is Totiramphus cinnamominus pelauensis. And then one on Pohnpei, which is even further away, it's like a triangle of islands. That was named Totiramphus cinnamominus. I have forgotten the name. Wow, it's been a year since I defended my dissertation and I forgot the name. It was another subspecies. The purpose of this is these 3 islands, really far apart, and they were considered their same species because you couldn't really tell. I've really gotten off topic, actually. I've realized here. I'm so sorry. I could restart this if you want. Okay.
Oh, this is great. Yeah.
I think you're so
Okay, I'll just restart.
Yeah.
So as these 3 different islands, they're really far apart. Just to put that into perspective, how far away these islands are is if you're from New York City going to Chicago, that is the distance between these 2 tiny islands in the Pacific. And then from New York City to Dallas, like those are pretty far
wow.
apart. And so DNA studies showed that they weren't part of the same species. So why does that matter for Guam Kingfisher? Well, Guam Kingfisher is endemic to 1 island. It was 1 subspecies of this 3-island complex. We showed that it wasn't 1 species, and so what does that mean for this 1 island? It means that the species only occurs on Guam. So let's rewind back to World War II history. And if you remember World War II history, there was a big Pacific battle, big war front. Oh my gosh, there's a name. The Pacific
Theater.
Yes. I'm not an expert when it comes to World War II history, but Guam is a major naval base for the U.S. And we had a bunch of fights and skirmishes and activity in the Pacific and in the Melanesian Islands. So islands really close to New Guinea. They have a species called the brown tree snake. And the brown tree snake occurs on these islands. The birds have evolved to they're not completely naive to these predators. So there's a lot of snakes, but they're also at lower densities because generally predators in their native habitats are at lower densities. So World War II happens. There's ships coming from Guam to different areas in the Pacific. There are just like there's always movement of animals, just like how rats have gone across the entire world. The same thing happened with brown tree snake. So it wasn't introduced purposefully, but they think that brown tree snake got onto the American naval ships, the cargo ships. They went back to Guam. Guam is a tiny island. It is 210 square miles. And that is the size of Chicago, actually. I'm not sure if that also includes the surrounding area. I'm not really sure what Chicago really entails. 210 square miles. And already the island is like half deforested because of people living on the island, because of American naval bases. So that's already causing habitat degradation of a very small island. So they bring on these tree snakes, and at first there wasn't a big issue. So Todiramphus cinnamomonas, Guam Kingfisher, it nests in a tree. Actually, it's called a bird catcher tree. It's really a cool looking tree. And it will eat, or it in the wild would eat skinks, small lizards. I think maybe they might have eaten some spiders as well, some insects. Again, not plunge diving.
No fish?
No fish.
Well, see, again, if the fish is laying on the shore, they might eat it.
Okay.
They're not going to
The
plunge.
people
not
can't
hunting
see
fish.
my face when you say that. I don't know if they are species that will eat dead things just found on the ground. Like there are plenty of animals that just won't scavenge. I have never heard of scavenging. Not to say that you're wrong and that could never happen, John. I would just be surprised. Maybe if it was starving. Okay, doesn't matter. We don't really think that it ate fish, but it could eat fish. The point is that it nests in trees. Brown tree snake is an arboreal species, and it can get up in the tree really easily. So there was, I think, 11 or 12, there was 12 native land birds, meaning not seabirds, endemic to Guam. Brown tree snake gets introduced accidentally, and it's not a big deal in the 1940s and 1950s. In the 1960s and 70s, they are increasing in population. And it isn't really until the late 70s, early 1980s, when people are like, oh no, something has gone terribly awry. We made a huge mistake because the population of brown tree snake exploded. So there was a 2016 study that tried to calculate the amount of brown tree snakes on Guam. And the 210 square mile island had the highest density of snakes on Earth, 400 times higher than a similar patch of Amazonian rainforest, which we think of as having lots of snakes. So again, these birds that did not evolve to have predators, and the fact that if it can get into trees, it can get anywhere. You're not safe on the ground, you're not safe on the trees, you're not safe anywhere. Maybe the ocean, but they're not plunge divers, unfortunately. so they were, unfortunately, the snakes were eating the adults, the babies, and when there's something eating both the adults and the babies, it causes massive declines. So there was attempts to try to get out other species from Guam, but the only ones that were able to be captured were Guam rail and Guam Kingfisher. So there's a flycatcher that went extinct. There was several others that I am forgetting. Do you remember, Shannon or John? Any other species?
I can't remember what they are, but yeah, some of them look these little flycatchers and things.
Yeah. And that is important for later, for other birds that eat insects. So the population just crashes. And so they were able to get, I think it was 29 individuals of Guam Kingfisher, airlifted along with Guam rail, airlifted out of Guam and brought to the U.S., the continental U.S., to have introduction programs. So for 50
And these
years,
are the only ones left in the entire population.
Yeah, there were none in the wild. So every individual was taken out of the wild and brought into captivity for a captive breeding program.
Amazing.
Wow.
That was based in
Wow.
the U.S.
and any that didn't get caught, maybe there might have been one or two left. They were probably eaten.
Okay.
I mean, I read that snake's density is 30,000 snakes a square mile. Think about that.
That's
Oh, my
horrifying.
That is a
Jeez.
lot of snakes. I don't
Indiana
like
Jones.
snakes. It creeps me out to
Yeah.
even think of it.
Yeah.
So not to defend the snakes, but you can imagine if your density is that high, you're trying to. I mean, they're eating each other too, probably.
Right.
But there's just not enough
Yeah.
food for them to, and so they're gonna like. It might be true that if in their normal distribution, if they came across a kingfisher, they actually might not try to eat it because it may not be that easy to swallow it or whatever. And
Yeah.
here suddenly they've got no choice. They're
No
going to go
food.
after.
Yeah.
So, doing field work in the Solomon Islands, I got to hold a brown tree snake. But fun fact about herpetologists is they don't really care if a snake is venomous, particularly, especially if it's not super venomous. So I'm holding it, and he's like, "Yeah, it's a brown tree snake." I'm like, "Oh, that's so cool," because it's in its native habitat. And then I'm holding it, not knowing it's like mildly venomous. And I'm like, "What's happening?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's probably gonna bite you." And I'm like, "Take it back!" And then it bit him.
Oh, good.
And I'm just
Oh my
like,
gosh.
"This is why birds are so much better."
Better. Yes.
Well, I mean, that is
crazy.
really a significant problem for people on Guam too, especially for little kids, because there's been hundreds and hundreds of little kids that have needed medical treatment from getting
Yeah.
bit by brown tree snakes. So they're not just bad for birds; they're bad for people.
Yeah. And so, with the collapse of all these bird species in Guam, the thing is that the habitat's kind of been thrown into whack. So, it's kind of a bit of a story as to what it kind of looks like when we lose biodiversity. So, what happened is that all these brown tree snakes ate so many of these birds, causing extinctions, that there has been a massive explosion of spiders because the birds that would eat the spiders are just gone. And so, because there's a massive explosion of spiders, there's also threatened butterflies and other insects that are critical to the biodiversity of Guam that are threatened with extinction. Because the birds that ate the spiders that kept the spider population are gone. And then also there's plant declines. So the kingfishers would nest along with, I think, a couple other species in that birdcatcher tree, which is, I can't remember its genus, but it's really beautiful tree. And because they would be in the tree, it would actually act as a pollinator and it would move the seeds around. It would help pollinate the tree. And so now that tree is also in decline. So it's kind of just these cascading effects that are just really difficult. So kind of at this point, Guam has really tried to, and the U.S. government has really put in a lot of effort to mitigate the brown tree snake. And so I'm not sure if you guys have followed what has occurred. So I remember when I was looking for jobs after my undergrad, I saw that there were job postings for people to go to Guam and kill brown tree snakes. That was the job, the whole job. And I was like, maybe. But but the thing is, like, I've heard these stories of like, they just can't kill enough of these snakes because there's just so many of them that it just takes so much effort just for one person to just go out. You're not gonna be able to kill like 25 snakes a day when they're at what density was that, Shannon? How many?
30,000 a square mile. Think about that.
And
You have no
210
chance.
square miles.
Yeah, there's no chance.
What do
Yeah.
you even do with all
That-
the dead snakes after you kill them? You bury them? Like what?
Burn
I mean,
them?
if burn them, yeah.
You know,
Leave 'em
there's
out
like,
for-
I don't know. There's also feral cats there too, which is another really
Oh,
significant problem.
really? Why are there feral
So-
cats? Aren't they being killed by all the brown tree snakes? I was hoping for that, actually.
Yeah, the answer to that is no.
Could we
I don't
train the
think
cats to hunt the snakes?
We need no, please.
we need
They're
to
both
kill-
horrible.
They're
Yeah.
harmonious.
So-
They could kill each other off.
That would be good,
Well-
but that's not what happens. They have parties together while they destroy the rest of the
Oh,
wildlife.
gosh.
Yeah, it's just that the density of snakes is reminiscent to the density of outdoor cats. You know, in normal habitats, or I'm going to go off on a tangent here. In normal habitats with feline predators or even canine predators like wolves, they live at really low densities. So it's totally fine. You know, wolves are part of the natural habitat. Bobcats part of the natural habitat, live at low densities. But when I go for a walk in Lexington or anywhere, I'm going to see about 5 or 10 cats outside. And maybe not all of them will kill the wildlife, but maybe one of them does. And if one of them does every single day, it's a problem. The point is that there's really high densities. And I was unfortunate that there's feral cats on Guam not being killed by the giant tree snakes, but we can't get everything that we want. So, but no. I looked into the efforts to eradicate the snakes because we have the birds. There's about 150 individuals. I absolutely love going to go see them in zoos. And I put my face up next to the glass. I'm just like, one day you'll become a museum specimen. And I'll be able to use you in my research. I mean, after it has contributed to the population. So the point is that they can't release them onto Guam until we deal with the brown tree snakes. Brown tree snakes are very difficult to catch. They're at really high densities. So there's people that will go out and just try to catch the snakes. They try to bait the snakes. And then this one thing that I recently learned, actually in the last few days, was that there's a way to poison the snakes. So I learned that there is aerial drops of mice that have Tylenol in them. And these little things that'll, they don't explode, they just kind of open up. And so there's like a mouse that has acetaminophen in it. Snakes cannot process acetaminophen. And so they will eat the mouse and they will become poisoned actually within 24 hours. And so I learned about this a little bit more. It takes 80 milligrams of acetaminophen to kill one brown tree snake within 24
That's
hours.
not very much.
It's not. So last
Wow.
night I had a headache and I took 1,500 milligrams
Yeah.
of acetaminophen. And do you know how many brown tree snakes that would kill?
That would kill.
18. Yeah. So that's kind of fun. So how that happens is if a human takes too much acetaminophen, acetaminophen is processed in the liver. There is a specific enzyme that breaks it down. And that enzyme is glutathione. I think that's how it's pronounced. If you take too much acetaminophen at once, you can't stop the toxic byproduct that is caused when you break down acetaminophen. And that is how people can get acetaminophen poisoning. Snakes do not
Fun
have
fact
this.
about that is that John and I just watched a Netflix documentary on the acetaminophen contamination in the U.S. that happened in the 80s, which I didn't know nearly that much about. It was actually a really interesting documentary if you want to go on Netflix and learn more about people doing bad
Is this the
things to
Tylenol?
each other.
We watched that
Tylenol
too.
killing?
Wait,
Yeah.
I wasn't alive in the 1980s. What happened?
It was
There was a tampering. There was a series of people in the Chicago area that died of acetaminophen poisoning, just like you're talking about.
To be specific,
cyanide.
they died of cyanide.
Cyanide poisoning, sorry, from the acetaminophen that they had taken, from the Tylenol that they had taken. And so someone had tampered with bottles of Tylenol and taken out the medication and put in cyanide and put them back on the shelves.
That's really
And
messed up.
People got them and they died. But it's a really interesting documentary. There's a whole bunch of stuff I didn't know about and a lot of stuff we didn't know, and that remains to be known about that whole experience, the whole event. Anyways, so
is this
thank you,
working on?
Netflix.
Is this working on brown tree sticks?
Yeah, there's a 37% reduction, at least in this one little study that I looked at.
That's really
but-
good.
But
Wait,
they had
that mean
they had them enclosed. They had the brown tree snakes enclosed, and they offered them like, "Oh, would you like some Tylenol-infested mice?" And 37% of them died in like a couple months.
Okay.
So it's not like a be all end all. The snake has to want to eat something that's already dead. It's not moving around. And then whenever I hear about scientists being like, what if you just like poison things and see if that affects everything else? Like I'm like, well, what else is going to be poisoned? But on Guam, so many things are already just completely messed up, from brown tree snake that there's not that much biodiversity, at least maybe. I'm sure there's kind of some kind of cascading effects, like think about all the mice that don't get eaten, somehow acetaminophen. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert. Again, I just learned about this a couple days ago. But it just reminds me of cane toads. For people who don't know, cane toads were introduced to be like some kind of biosolution in Australia. Cane toads are endemic to South America. They brought them to Australia, and they didn't eat what they thought they were going to eat. And cane toads are super toxic to other animals and has caused a cascading effect of issues in Australia.
But now, Guam
but brown tree
Kingfishers.
snakes.
So we've got these Guam Kingfishers in captivity.
Yes.
Yeah, so what's going on with that?
Yeah, that's really
so
exciting.
they're actually reintroducing them to an atoll 1,000 miles away from Guam. I think it's called Palmyra Atoll. And I'm sorry, it's 1,000 miles away from Hawaii. It is 3,000 miles away from Guam.
Oh, wow.
And what is cool about that is it is a U.S. Territory that is managed by the Nature Conservancy.
Nature Conservancy.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And so it's a nature reserve. You can't even fly there. You can't go there unless you're in a research vehicle or research flight. And so, yes. So they
is
have
it a similar
these-
habitat to like how Guam was before the introduction of the
Yeah, they
snake?
did all of that work before they decided where they could introduce them. So they had to go to a place that wasn't overrun with cats and brown tree snakes or rats or any of these other things. So they looked at the niche of these birds and realized that they could, across the world, okay, where can we put these back in? Islands are good places to put things back in because the biodiversity tends to be lower. The area is obviously smaller. So you have, in theory, you have more controls that you can, more variables you can control for. So yeah, they took 9 individuals that were hatched in zoos across the U.S., brought them to Kansas, to Wichita, Kansas, which is where Pete lives, our son lives, to the zoo there, that the weather has been so bad there every time we've been there that we haven't we had to have cover to even go to get the car. The weather's been so terrible. So we've never been to the zoo, but now I want to go to the zoo because the keepers there hand-raised those 9 babies.
Oh, wow.
And then they put them on a plane and sent them to this island and
they were
acclimatized
in an aviary.
them.
Yeah, and on
and
the
then-
island, so they didn't just like let them go on the island first.
Yeah. So they acclimatized them for a month, I think, and then they said, okay, let's see what happens. And they let them go because they're very good in captivity. These birds, I think, probably exceeded their expectations of their ability to breed in captivity. And so they let them go. And turns out they are breeding. So this year they actually had successful, there's even videos I shared with RJ before, videos of them having sex.
It
Shannon
wasn't a
said,
video.
Not safe
I,
for
was,
work.
I was very disappointed. It was just a still image,
just a still.
Shannon. No
No,
sound.
there's a video. There's a video.
No, that of the act.
The
But
man
that
just jumped
were
through the
the
whole thing.
offspring of rays.
Yeah, I was
'Cause
waiting for it.
That they, I spent way too much time today trying to figure out if those eggs had hatched, because in theory they saw the eggs at the end of March, the beginning of April. They should have hatched, and I don't know if they actually have hatched. I can't find out, but I do have ins. I just didn't think about it early enough to ask the people who would know. Taylor will know, or he'll know who to tell me to ask.
Taylor Haynes
So-
will always know.
Yes, that's true.
Well,
But-
maybe
so I don't
after this
know.
episode will come out in a couple of weeks from when we're recording it. Maybe they'll have hatched by then, and we could do a little
I'm
follow-up
sure
too.
they've hatched. I'm sure they've hatched. Their
Okay.
incubation times have passed. So,
Okay, cool.
or they have hatched if they were going to.
Or they've just been incubating inviable eggs, which
That's
I have.
possible, but that's
I
very
don't want to be a
sad.
pessimist, but
Well, I was going to say, I was going to be pessimistic in another way, which is they could have hatched and they could have had trouble feeding them.
Oh.
And so, it's just these are interesting
You
experiments.
guys are so negative.
No,
Hey,
we
whoa,
want this to work. That's like-
Shannon, the Nature Conservancy article about them also stated it
I
might
know,
take a couple
I know.
seasons for them to be good parents. They might not get it on the
know.
first try.
Yeah.
If you think about it, the in the tropics, I mean, so many nests are they don't make it to fledged birds.
True.
Well, I think
these
there's
birds
like
seem to be
71%.
overachievers, though. They're overachievers because
You
they
have
didn't
high
even think they do what they
expectations.
did.
we're just
So-
lucky they're not plunge divers.
When we went to
Why?
that thing at the Brookfield Zoo and they were telling us about the Guam Kingfishers, one thing they kept emphasizing was that they're not very good parents.
No.
And we were like,
That was so
we
funny.
were like,
they didn't
oh,
have
don't
appropriate
judge them.
parents.
I know. We were like,
Yeah,
don't
I
judge
know.
them.
Yeah.
But I mean, not having, predators, just
Right.
that they're not used to having to protect their chicks like other birds do.
Or feed
And
them.
talk about generational
Or feed
trauma.
them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That must
True,
mean
true.
the babies are resilient, though.
We'll
Yes.
see. We'll see.
We're going to find out.
We'll see.
I know. I
was
have
gonna
to
say
find out now.
The humans were taking
I wanna
care
be
of
optimistic
the
like
the
you,
bad
Shannon.
parent ones.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm a glass half full.
I know,
person.
this
That's
is
never-
crazy.
That's
I
not
just-
me.
Always think that it's better to have low expectations so they're exceeded rather than have high expectations and it's hard to arise to them.
That
I
Jenna,
know, but
that's
even
I
the
just
fact
want
that
them to
it
not
worked at
die.
all.
Yeah.
How about have a second attempt?
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure on these two birds. They can do it.
The good thing is they're out on an island. They got nothing else to do.
What are you saying, John?
That was profound, John.
Good Lord.
They just need to eat, sleep, and procreate.
Exactly.
Other than all those other birds on those other islands, they have these such vivid social lives.
Distractions.
Just bird social media, it's really degrading the youth these days.
One of those birds came from the Brookfield Zoo, though, for Chicago people.
Oh,
So
cool.
one of those
Very
things
cool.
flying around on that island is a Brookfield Zoo bird.
That's
which
awesome.
I
Oh, that's
also
cool.
like the idea of.
Yeah.
That's nice.
A cool story from the Brookfield Zoo presentation that RJ and I went to. Our Lake Cook Audubon group arranged it. It was really exciting because one of the handlers spoke to us, and then RJ, he had been to the atoll, right? Or was it someone else?
I think he had. I don't remember.
It was
exactly.
either him or someone else at the Brookfield Zoo had been to this Palmyra atoll, and I thought his talking about that was one of my favorite parts of the presentation because he said he kind of talked about it like The Shining or something because there's only like 4 people on the island at one time, and he said whoever it was he was talking about, he said they didn't like talk to another person for like a month. It was something crazy. So but that's good
That's what
for
you
the
want.
birds. Yeah.
Hopefully they don't bring any cats with them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then there's
No,
nothing
don't
else
bring
to
your
do.
pets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. This is island biogeography in its
Profound.
yeah, exactly, in its purest form. But the plan is eventually to try to figure things out on Guam so that they can introduce them back to Guam.
Yeah, but only if they can get rid of the damn snakes
Right.
and cats.
So
No, this
there
is
was also studies talking about being like, well, maybe there's a threshold of brown tree snakes. We'll never actually get rid of all of them. We just need to find the threshold of brown tree snakes. I'm just like,
Well,
it sounds
to
like
extinct-
forever.
Yeah.
To extinct these birds again? Is that
I
what
know.
we're going to do?
Right. Right.
Practice.
Giving up,
We had a
really.
practice run, and now we're going to have another practice run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, when you have a starting population from 9 individuals, you've severely bottlenecked that population, and the amount of
Shannon-
genetic variability is going to be low, relatively speaking. So
They're not just going to let those 9 birds breed. They're going to bring in other individuals,
Yeah, I know,
right?
but still, they even the 29 that was the founding population of everything. That's a small number of birds. One of the things that people have done with collections is to look at what kinds of variation used to be in these birds before they were so heavily bottlenecked. So you can use museum specimens to get some idea of the genetic variability that there used to be and the genetic variants that there used to be. And there's talk, at least in some of the macaws, of actually reintroducing some of the variants that we know existed in the population to try to kind of give them a bit more variability to help them survive. Because even though Guam Kingfishers went to 29 individuals, a lot of other birds had a lot fewer of a starting population in their captive breeding programs than that. I mean, the Spix's macaws were related individuals that were brought in.
Oh, wow.
What I was thinking about, though, with that... Go ahead, Jenna.
I was going to say, I got samples from an individual of Guam Kingfisher that was in a zoo in like 2009. And I also got a bit of specimen cut from the toe of a bird that was collected in 1945 in Guam, with the hope that I would be able to compare the two genomes to be like, oh, this toe pad sample, which is a historical sample, what did its population look like? Like, can we see like a compare before and after? Unfortunately, with historical samples, oftentimes it's very difficult. Like, the variability that we see in a historical sample, is it because of what was actually occurring in that population at the same time or at the time it died? Or are we seeing a lot of variability because of DNA degradation in the 80 years since it's been dead on a shelf and dry? Because the DNA is still there, it's still slowly decomposing. There are markers of this occurring in the DNA. Anyway, I tried to do that.
Shannon, did you look at how many Guam Kingfishers we have?
I did.
It's definitely under 10.
Right.
You have some very interesting, the other species. So the Pohnpei kingfisher, Tony Ramphus. God, I forgot. I really did forget that species name. The one that's on Pohnpei. Reichenbachii. That's what it is. Ha ha.
Oh.
Tony Ramphus Reichenbachii. Can you edit that into the first one? I remembered it. You guys have some very interesting specimens of Tony Ramphus Reichenbachii, because some of the adults, they say they're male, are white-bodied, and some of them say they're male and they are rufous-bodied. Same with the females, rufous and white-bodied. It doesn't make any sense. And in almost any other collection, I have not seen it. You guys have very weird specimens, and I think they are from private collectors. It's very confusing.
Cool. And my guess is that they were missexed.
It's like it's incorrect.
Yeah, that's my prediction. My prediction is that they'll be...
So my dissertation, I made one be white. All the ones that were white were going to be one sex, and all the ones that were rufous were going to be the other sex, because they were both adults. But it was not the case in others. There's only white ones in other. It really messed up my. I spent like a whole day just hitting my head against a wall, causing myself to have CTE.
Yes.
Tylenol.
Tau proteins.
You took Tylenol, yeah, that's right.
I was a year ago.
So there's one of the reasons why Guam Kingfishers are lucky.
Why?
They don't have to deal with plunge diving and potential for
CTE.
Brain damage. Yeah.
And that's why maybe there's more non-plunge diving kingfishers than plunge diving. I'm just joking. Shannon, I know how much you love plunge diving kingfishers.
I do.
But I want you to know, so many people, they are like, Jenna, you study kingfishers. You must love plunge diving birds. And I'm like, they don't eat fish. And that is what I have to say every single time I tell people that I study kingfishers. Because and what I should have started off with this whole podcast, when you said, what is a kingfisher? I should have said, they're really diverse in the Indo-Pacific. They're these beautiful, brilliantly colored birds that in the Indo-Pacific, there are all these different islands, all these really cool island endemism, and are the poster childs of rapid phenotypic diversification on different islands. And they're, I think, just as cool as Galapagos finches, in my opinion. And also, just getting back there,
I think that Galapagos finches aren't that interesting. People
they really aren't.
Emphasize them.
And Darwin, he got a
didn't
specimen.
care about them.
He did. He actually did. He cared about, he didn't care about the Galapagos finches. He cared about kingfishers. So he had a specimen that he called a kingfisher on the Galapagos. And there is not a kingfisher in the Galapagos, although there are random records of belted kingfisher being in the Galapagos in like the 60s. And there has been records of belted kingfisher in Hawaii, in Iceland, in the British Isles. So they can sometimes go really far. But Darwin, so the specimen that Darwin collected that he called a kingfisher is missing. And everyone now thinks that it was wrong. But he did collect a kingfisher, a gray-headed kingfisher in Southeast Asia. And he also, one thing that was really interesting, I had a little note of it, was that he was looking at, I think it was gray-headed kingfisher. Wait, no. Did I say gray-headed kingfisher in Southeast Asia? I meant gray-headed kingfisher in Africa. Okay. So gray-headed kingfisher is an African species, and it also occurs on some islands in Cape Verde archipelago. And when he was coming down to the Cape Verde archipelago, before he ever got to South America, he was observing gray-headed kingfisher both on the continent and then on the islands. And he noted in his diary that the island birds were acting differently than the continental birds. So this was the first case where he was noticing different behaviors for island birds, which is very important. It comes back to kingfishers, another reason why they're so amazing. And also he wrote to Alfred Russel Wallace about kingfishers. So in 1867, he wrote a letter to Wallace, and he said, "When next in London, I must get you to show me your kingfishers." Isn't that just a delightful little thing to write? They're writing little love letters together.
Wait a minute. I thought they were king hunters at that point.
No, because Darwin, he was European, and you know who called them king hunters, John? Wallace did. Because why? Wallace worked in the Indo-Pacific, where they don't always plunge dive. So, but.
By the way, I was waiting for you to say that the gray-headed kingfishers on Cape Verde were plunge diving, but apparently Darwin didn't see that.
I don't know, actually. I'm not super familiar with African kingfishers.
Okay, maybe, maybe.
But so he wrote that thing to each other about like, show me your kingfishers the next time you're in London, and 2 months later, another letter between them. They're like, thank you for showing me about these kingfishers and talking about sexual dichromatism in kingfishers. So they met and they talked about kingfishers.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So, yes, they're important. Yeah. Even Aristotle talked about kingfishers.
We have a Guam Kingfisher in the little exhibit in the museum. So if you want to, if you're around in Chicago and you come to that, you'll see a Guam Kingfisher for the second half of this year. And I realized why I didn't know how many we had because our database is down. So now I'm in VertNet and trying to figure it out. I know we have at least 2.
I think there are about 6 to 8. And again, it was a common bird on Guam before the tree snakes showed up.
Okay.
Oh, one thing that they talked about when we went to the Brookfield Zoo was just how like excited the people of Guam are for like this bird to come back and how much they've like embraced the research and are like excited for all the progress, like each step along the way. I just thought that was like so cool. What a fun thing to like unite everyone and to be like, yes, like we're gonna get our kingfisher back eventually. That's got to be such a fun thing to like pull for. And
think about how crazy it is to have basically all the birds that you grow up with disappear from your neighborhood and things. And I mean, that's what happened with these snakes. It's absolutely incredible.
I mean, really slowly it's happening in the U.S. with all the population declines of birds that used to be so much more common in the U.S. It's just slow-moving extinction train.
That's true.
Well, that's not a very positive thing.
Yeah, Do you not want to end on that?
No, I'm going to go glasses half full there and say that the good news is we've got a much bigger land mass to
have them die on.
Deal with our brown snakes, brown tree snakes.
You know what our brown tree snake is? Cats.
Cats. Yeah.
They're cats. I mean, also habitat fragmentation loss, but yeah.
I mean, I guess I want people to leave the episode and go look at kingfisher beaks if you see them. and think about the bioengineering marvels that have happened through the evolutionary process that have been produced. And think about the fact that so much of what we use and we take directly from biodiversity. How do we know how to make a bridge? We looked at the way bird bones are put together. So there's all
Really?
kinds of things. Yeah, the way you make something strong and lightweight. So if you look at the way basically the struts are inside of a bird bone, that was an inspiration of how you design bridges that could span long distances, be strong, but be lightweight enough. So, and that's these are just tiny examples, but there's so many things that come directly into human use that are the products of the evolutionary process. And we shouldn't be destroying on purpose the results of evolution.
Oh, and I'll just throw out there too that what went extinct on Guam was a small bird that you had to get a male and a female getting all the way out there. Where's the nearest founding population on another island in the Pacific? Hundreds to thousands of kilometers away. And,
Thousands, yeah.
Definitely not. You said hundreds. So I was thinking of hundreds of thousands, and I was like,
no.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
But, I mean, the great dispersers. I mean, those kingfishers are absolutely amazing in terms of what they've been able to
and if you do
colonize.
nothing but marvel at them, you've taken a medication that will lower your respiration, that will lower your blood pressure, that will lower your heart rate, that changes the stress hormones in your body. So go outside, take a look at what's outside.
It's definitely a form of meditation, that's for sure. And mindfulness. It's just really nice to go outside and see the different birds around the world.